say hello to our next moderator, Axios' Chief Technology Correspondent, Ina Fried.
It's great to be back in our nation's capital in person with all of you. Thank you so much for being here. Just a reminder that to stick around after the programming is done, as we have our One Fun Thing reception in the main hall when the show concludes, which I'm told is happening at 4:20, but I'm also told that has no specific meaning. Our next guest, like myself, traveled in from the West Coast to be here, so please welcome Box CEO and co-founder Aaron Levie. Aaron.
Okay.
Great to see you.
Good to see you.
I understand you're fresh from a lobbying trip with TechNet.
Yeah, we're trying to change all regulation in tech, so.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure
it didn't work, by the way.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
It will take a little bit more time.
Well, I'm sure we will get there, and probably in conjunction with the main reason I love talking with Aaron about everything, because he's really smart about tech and been doing this a little while. But we're having a moment right now, it seems like, with AI.
Yeah.
We've had moments before. If I'd have said that last year, I hopefully would not have said we're having a moment, and it's the metaverse. But this is a real one?
This is, I mean, I don't want to offend any metaverse people, but I would say this one is more real than the metaverse phase, so.
And one of the things I think is really helpful in a moment like this.
Everybody's quiet, so is this like a metaverse conference? So did I really screw this one up? Okay.
If you look underneath your sets, you're going to need your headset for the rest of the presentation. All right. I mean, there was some talk, because Box does all this office stuff. There was a moment where there were some folks, I'm not going to name names, trying to convince us that we would be sitting at our keyboard, putting on a headset just so we could have 3 monitors.
Yeah.
That didn't happen, right?
Not yet. The problem is the monitors actually are lower resolution than your computer, and so you have to give up a lot, and then also you literally can't see what's going on around you. So I'm super excited by the prospect of VR, but I think a lot of the vision of unfortunately living in a metaverse is probably either dystopian or impractical. But the AI wave that we're in right now is definitely the real deal. And basically, I'm sure everybody kind of has studied up on the latest, but these large language models are just 100 times more performant, general purpose, more effective than anything we've seen previously in AI. And so it means that you can bring it to so many more use cases than what we could have previously done just even literally a year ago.
And I think one of the things that can be really helpful is understanding what they can do, what they can't do.
Yeah.
What are the issues that we can and should be paying attention to and worried about, and what are some of the things that actually we don't need to worry about. So that's some of the ground I'm hoping to cover.
Yep.
In terms of the things they can do, what maybe to start with one, what are you excited? What is AI going to let you do, is going to let the industry do, your customers do, that really wasn't possible without these kinds of language models?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, it's incredibly exciting because we, so at Box, we help companies store their data and specifically their content. And what's inside of content are contracts and movie scripts and financial documents and press releases and project plans. It's all of this written information. And previously, you could never really query that data. You couldn't understand what was inside of it. You really couldn't generate it in any kind of automatic way. You could for all of your structured data. So anything goes into a database, you can really quickly run calculations on. You can find out how much inventory you have. You can find out what your financial reports are or how the supply chain is doing. You couldn't do that for all of this unstructured data. And 80% of the world. 80% of the world's data is unstructured. So that means 80% of the data that we've ever produced is actually stuff that you can't really query. You can't really mine for intelligence. You can't understand what's inside of it. And so the latest breakthroughs with AI, it's actually right in the name, large language model. And so language is what these things are very good at. It's very good at reasoning through information, synthesizing text, and obviously multimedia. And that is, we have tens of billions of files. So we imagine a lot of use cases where you'd be able to understand what's inside of your documents. You could ask them questions. You could generate new content on demand. And so we're extremely excited because we've been in this space now 7 or 8 years on the AI side. And previously what would happen is any customer that had an AI use case, they had to bring their own pre-trained AI model for just their use case. And so if you wanted to do something where you understood contracts in the UK, you had to have an AI model for contracts in the UK. And now with these large language models, you don't really have to come with any of the AI. It sort of happens freely for you. So it's the broad-based impact and usability that has made this moment so profound with whether it's GPT 3.5 with ChatGPT or GPT-4 that we've just seen.
And I want to put it in kind of like even more basic like English. Like there was a once upon a time where I think you and I both remember, me more than you because you're a little younger than I am, where literally you had to remember anything you wanted to know about the document, you had to fit in the 8 characters that could fit in the name because that was the only thing you were going to be easily able to find.
Yep.
Open up BASIC or whatever, you'd have a list of files. You better remember what's in that document. Then it became really cool because you could search any keyword in the document.
Yep.
What AI, one of the things it brings a ton of things, but one of the things it brings that's really great is you don't have to think of one keyword. It'll generate great summaries.
Yep.
It'll help you. You don't even have to open the document
Yep.
to get a sense of what's in it.
And the cool thing with these large language models is because they've been trained on literally everything, figuratively everything ever written online that they have access to, they've seen every single earnings script ever created, every single movie script ever created, every single Wikipedia article. And so not only is it really good at understanding language, and so it can do something like, okay, read this document and summarize it for me. It could say, read this document and give me example questions that a financial analyst would ask about this earnings script. So all of a sudden, it's far more than just looking at that document and only using its reasoning skills on just that document. It gets access to the world's information, the world's knowledge, to then go and apply to whatever business process you're doing. So, famously, GitHub Copilot is a great example of this. You're writing code, and it has access to literally everything that has ever been, created on GitHub, and it's going to be an accelerant to writing any kind of code. Imagine that for literally every single aspect of our work. And that's, obviously in the near term that can be jarring for certain kind of use cases, but ultimately that's incredibly exciting from just a pure productivity and where we can go spend our time as knowledge workers or employees of these organizations.
And it's great for a range of tasks from you could turn that, earnings script into, a haiku or Old English, and that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But you could also turn your earnings thing pretty quickly into a press release and a series of tweets, and that's kind of exciting but scary for people whose job it is to create press release or a series of tweets. But there are some things that AI is not good for.
Yeah.
And I think one of the challenges right now is everyone's pitching it as the answer to everything.
Yeah.
From your experience, what are the things it's not good yet?
Yeah.
And what are the things that it's probably not suited for, broadly speaking?
Yeah, so I haven't figured out the best way to create the analogy for this, but the simplest way so first of all, just what at least ChatGPT, whenever we're talking about AI, we're kind of probably talking about that for now. What it's doing is it's scanned everything in the world, create this sort of model of probability of word usage in certain sequences. And so all it's really doing is predicting what is the most likely next word that will happen after another series of words. And so what you have to really go in with the mindset of is it's just probability. It doesn't literally know anything. And so when you give it things that are very specific fact-based questions, it's likely to have errors in that information because for everything that is a fact, there's also a lot of things that have been written on the internet that aren't facts, and it's learned from all of those indiscriminately. And so you don't really want to go in and just ask ChatGPT alone for really, really serious, mission critical facts and then just trust that information. But what it's really good at is anything that is sort of logic-based, judgment-based, qualitative in nature, write a press release for this product launch, brainstorm, what new features could we build, how would you coach an employee on a specific type of issue. These are things that are much more qualitative, much more nuanced. And as the reader, you can then go and then ultimately decide whether you want to implement that particular type of information. I think for pure fact-based things, you wouldn't want to just go and trust it right away. The one caveat is now the latest version of ChatGPT has access to the internet, which means it can take things from reliable sources and then be able to use its large language model to let you interact with that reliable source in a human readable natural language way. And so the sort of most recent example is it can access Wolfram Alpha and then be able to do things like like I want to be able to, run a math equation, which is obviously you want to be 100% fact-based, but you can interact with that math equation with natural language, which, historically you couldn't do that. So that's the most recent breakthrough just in the past couple of weeks.
So we could talk more about that, but I want to get into, okay, we're moving into this world that, it's a very sudden shift. 2 years ago, almost nobody had access to this. Right now and next year, almost everyone's going to have access to it. We've got a lot to adjust to fairly quickly as a society. We've already talked about the economic disruption. There's some jobs that are going to be heavily impacted. It's trained on data that's based on the data that was on the internet, which has a lot of bias in it. There's a lot of competition issues, economic security, national security. Where should we be focusing our energy? As a society, where should governments be putting their energy? I'm sure if you're talking to legislators, I'm sure you're telling them what you'd like, but I'm sure they're also saying, where do you think we're needed?
Yeah, I mean, we have to probably think of this as the most essential level. It is a new technology revolution, of the scale of the internet, or some of the PC computing, that level of impact. And so it's exactly the kind of issues that everybody ran into in somewhere between 93 and 96, when we were all of a sudden, holy crap, everything can be on the internet. What does that mean to copyright? What does this mean to communication? What does this mean to the transmission of information across boundaries? We are going to have versions of those topics. Every single one of those will have to be relitigated through the lens of AI. Copyright is a perfect kind of one that is squarely at the center of AI, which is, what if the AI model was trained on proprietary information that was copyrighted that normally you'd have to pay for a license for? How do we work through those issues? Is this really a derivative work? What does it count as? We don't have a lot of we don't have policy that anticipated these types of dynamics for good reason. And so now the new issue is obviously government's going to move at a certain speed, and for good reason that they shouldn't move super quick on every topic. The tech industry is going to sort of exceed that speed, obviously by maybe an order of magnitude. And so how do these universes converge in a way that balances sort of not over-rotating and then blocking technology where maybe other countries would then go in a different direction and we'd be at a disadvantage, or obviously being maybe too passive, and then all of a sudden you have some adversarial kind of use cases with this technology that would equally be very bad. And this is, I think we have to have this conversation every time there's a new technology as sort of specific as Instagram or TikTok, and as macro as the early internet.
And in the tech industry, it tends to move at a pretty fast speed. Government, no offense, tends not to move at that speed. One approach, which I've read about a lot in the last 24 hours, is maybe tech needs to slow down. Maybe we should just hit the pause button for 6 months.
Right.
Where do you come in on that?
Well, so the moratorium proposal was interesting in an intellectual sense. It was fun to read the proposal, and then I think ultimately sort of not particularly practical or useful to the problem, and in part because, first of all, if you haven't read it, read it. It's a quick read, but there were no literal proposals in the actual moratorium. It was just, let's now spend the time to get together and work on this issue. But it was signed by people for the past decade that have been working on this issue. So almost by definition, there's nothing that would happen in 6 months that would be totally different from what that sort of set of and groups have been working on for the past decade. The only thing that's new is ChatGPT has sort of taken off like a wildfire in an unpredictable way. So it's causing this conversation, which is, I think, largely what's being taken advantage of in a positive way, not sort of negative. But the issue is that you kind of imagine you're in 5 months and 3 weeks from now. And everybody agreed, we're not going to do the next big breakthrough, which is what it called for. And it's 5 months, 3 weeks from now, and all that same set of people are sitting around, will they have really reached consensus that, okay, now we're okay. We're definitely okay to do the next big model. And there's no chance, because some of these people think it's a complete existential crisis, at the scale of a nuclear bomb. And some people just want to make sure that it doesn't all of a sudden go rogue and become a Hitler bot. And so there's not going to be uniform consensus on what problems need to be solved, which means that the 6-month moratorium is kind of moot in terms of it being a practical solution to this.
So I tend to agree with you that, we're not going to be better off 6 months from now in terms of more prepared.
Right.
And the technology's already, the horse has left the barn. Even if we could get it to stop for 6 months, it would still be out of the barn. At the same time, the Hitler bot problem is also real, and that's now trademark.
But we keep having a Hitler bot problem. So so it's not like we had the Hitler bot problem with wasn't it Tay at Cortana?
Yeah. So there were these very early chat bots, and one of the first things they found was if they're trained on the internet, they tend to inherit the internet, and that means they're really good at being racist and homophobic and sexist. So we haven't solved that problem.
Right.
But we do have these now out in the wild. We do have a lot more power in these machines.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, Tay was only good at racism. These ones are good at racism and
broader things. Yes, exactly.
But I am
much more comprehensive.
I am curious. To me, as someone who works in the information industry, it has seemed to me that one of the reasons we struggle so much as a society has been this massive amount of information. It was basically as much as humans were able to handle, and we were struggling with misinformation. Am I wrong in thinking that just the power of these machines, these language models, their ability to generate more content, accurate, not accurate, malicious, not malicious, is just going to make that misinformation problem so much worse? And in the 4 minutes we have remaining, just solve that for us.
Yeah, exactly. I would say that I think so I just see it as raising the water level of everything. It raises the water level of misinformation. It also raises the tools that we have to fight that. So if you have, one simple example is it's sort of a field from the Hitler bot piece. But if you imagine security as one of the use cases, on one hand you have adversaries where you could now create a bot farm that could go phish people to try and get credentials. So that's really bad because now I have 100x the capacity or 1,000x or 1,000,000x the capacity to send emails to everybody here, pretending to be your colleague, and you could do it at a scale that now all you need to do is get the 1 in 1,000 people that will fall for that, whereas previously it was cost prohibitive. So that's really scary. In the reverse, though, now on the defense side, all you would need to do is implement one really, really well-trained AI bot to be on the receiving end that says, hey, wait a second, no, this actually doesn't look like your colleague because of a bunch of signals that we as humans never end up factoring in when we go and give our credentials to an outside system. And so on one hand, you have massive leverage for the adversary. On the other hand, you have incredible leverage on the defense side. And I think we're going to see use cases across any of the areas that have some negative kind of aspect to. You're going to have the ability to see the reverse as well due to AI. And so the problem is it's just really, really hard to block the negative use cases at a technical level. We don't really know how to do that. And so it's not that we want to see these types of use cases in the wild, it's that it doesn't really end up being easy to implement.
So there's two things I want to pick up on.
Yeah.
One is we are going to need good bots to fight bad bots. Great, I can sort of see that. We're already seeing that. Academics were some of the first to be worried about ChatGPT and the like. We have AI that can help detect what's written by AI. I will say right now,
not great.
Not so good at detecting it. But let's assume the bots get better. Am I wrong to worry about the fact that in the middle of those warring bots is a human being that's already struggling? If you look at where America is as a society, we're already struggling to process accurate information from facts. Things have become opinions that should be facts.
Yeah.
I just worry that the humans aren't evolving at anywhere near the speed of the good bots, the bad bots, any of the bots. That we're just going to really struggle with the fact that these output, not that they're better than humans, not that they're smarter than humans, but they can do a lot more, and our brains aren't moving any faster. Am I wrong to be worried about that?
No. You definitely are. And for the low price of $8, Elon Musk is going to solve that problem because everybody will be verified, and we won't have this problem. But I think I would say the social media misinformation phenomenon is a very specific real threat. AI enhances that. There's no question. If you look at the broader impact, though, and we just kind of look at we as people that go into work and we type on computers and we connect information and we email people and we write things. The question would be, what would a lever of, where you had a 2x, a 3x, a 5x impact of performance and speed and productivity be to go and do the things that are actually not the things that are easy to replace, but the things that are uniquely human, the parts where you do get to go and actually like work on a really interesting problem and brainstorm with other people and create a product and get that product in the hands of customers, get rid of all of the sort of drudgery that we have to do to be able to do the real interesting stuff. Let the computer do the stuff that really doesn't matter as much. It's not really differentiated work, so we can go and do the differentiated part. That's, I think, the ultimate value proposition of AI, and I think we're going to get that as a result of this new wave in a way that was sort of promised 10 years ago, but we just ran into the reality of like the models were too narrow, it was too expensive, we didn't have the underlying architectures ready, and I think we've solved a bunch of those problems.
Well, I would love to keep talking with you. The good news is I already had a conversation with Aaron Bot, and Aaron Bot has agreed to come back next year, and we can see where we are next year.
Okay, we'll be talking about metaverse, so.
Before our next segment, we're going to take a break, so don't go too far, but do enjoy a refreshment or two, and be sure to send either yourself back in the room or an AI of your choice.
Right.
Thank you so much. See you soon. Thanks, Aaron.